Okay, a good Tavach, a Freilich Tavach. We are now in the week of Rosh Hashanah, the week of accepting Hashem's monarchy, um, last days of preparation for the coronation of Hashem, the highest time of divine grace and mercy at the end of the month of Elul. The king is in the field. Hashem is especially receptive to us to answer all of our prayers. I wanted to share a few thoughts about the idea of self-introspection, about examining where we are spiritually and preparing for the coming year. Um, as I mentioned last week, um, the general content of our introspection is meant to be with a sense of gratitude to Hashem, feeling how Hashem is taking care of us individually, personally, and constantly pouring kindness upon us. So we're meant to think about if we are living in a way that expresses gratitude to Hashem. When Hashem is showing us this warm, bright smile, are we living in a way that reflects that we are so fortunate to have that bright smile? So I think I'll begin with a story about that was shared by Rabbi Shaya Kastir about the Rebbe Miliska. Rabbi Shai Kastir was a student of a famous tzaddik who was called Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Friedman from Liska, and he was once visited by this woman who was really upset because her husband was arrested and he didn't do anything wrong, and she's alone with these little kids, and they're hungry and they're scared, and she's completely distraught, has no way out, doesn't know what to do with her hungry, scared kids, while her husband is in prison and he didn't do anything wrong. And she told this tzaddik, "I'm not leaving here until you promise me that my husband will get out of prison." So the tzaddik asked her, "Where is your husband in prison?" She said, "In the city called Kalev." She said, "Okay, go to Kalev and go to this dark, distant prison and speak to the man who is the warden of the prison, and tell this warden that the Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Friedman, the Lisker Rebbe, is asking that your husband be freed." It sounded a little strange. Why would this man care about the Lisker Rebbe? He's not even Jewish. He's in the middle of nowhere in Kalev. But she had faith in the words of the tzaddik, and she traveled to the city, traveled to the outskirts, to this very remote prison. And there she knocks on the door and summons and asks to speak to the warden. And she does as she is told. Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Friedman said, "You should let my husband go free." Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Friedman, the Lisker Rebbe, right, this Gentile, non-Jewish guy, is like, "Of course, it's an honor for me to do something that the Lisker Rebbe asks. Please, come with me." And they go to the prison, through the dank, dark cells and stairs until they find her husband. She identified her husband, and he right away said, "You're free to go. You're a free man. You can go." What was behind this? Why was he so touched by the request of this woman? Because she said that the Lisker Rebbe, Tzvi Friedman, is asking, why that mean something to the Gentile? So what happened was like this. Years before, this guy was living in a town with many Jews. He was very interested to hear their conversations about their faith in Hashem. And he heard them discussing that they're going to travel together to visit their Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah. So this Gentile's like, it sounds pretty cool. These guys are pretty cool. They have a lot of faith in God, and they're going to visit their tzaddik. These guys are not silly. They're not going to do this for no reason. This must be something valuable in this trip. So he asked them, "Hey guys, would you mind if I joined you on this journey to your Rebbe? I want to go to your Rebbe too." So they thought about it. They weren't so sure it's such a good idea, but like, you know what? If you take care of our horses during Rosh Hashanah, you can come with us. Okay, great. I'll take care of the horses, no problem. And he comes along with them to visit this tzaddik. And he's watching the horses, but every so often he walks into the shul and he sees how everyone's so devoted, so engrossed, so immersed, so with such heartfelt prayers to Hashem, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish people, in this Hasidic environment. This non-Jew was touched to the depth of his soul. And he says to the Hasidim, "Could I see your Rebbe too? I also want to speak to your Rebbe." So the Hasidim are like, "I don't know if that's such a good idea. We'll ask him." They asked their Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, "I would love to see him. Let him come in." He comes in, and the Lisker Rebbe asks him, "What can I do for you?" He says, "I want a blessing to earn a livelihood." So the Lisker Rebbe says to him, "I want you to do this. I want you to travel to Caliph, and I want you to present your candidacy for position of warden of a prison." He's like, "What do I have to do with being a warden of a prison? I have no background, I have no history, I have no credentials to be a warden of a prison." So the Lisker Rebbe said, "This is my request and my blessing to you, and maybe you'll be successful. Try it. All right." He goes to Caliph, he presents himself as a candidate for the position. Sure enough, miraculously, out of all the candidates, he's chosen to be the warden of the prison. And this guy is all of a sudden has gone from being like whatever he tried before didn't work. And now he has a serious position, a warden of a prison. And he comes back one day to visit Rabbi Friedman with all kinds of gifts, all kinds of expensive gifts, to thank him for his blessing. He's now made it in life. He's gone from being a schnook to now the warden of a prison. He's doing very well financially. He wanted to express his appreciation, all these expensive gifts. When he visited the tzaddik demurred. I don't want to accept these gifts. Thank you very much, very politely, but I don't want to accept the gifts. And he's like, "Please, they expressed my deep thanks to you. I really, really want to express my thanks." So the Rebbe said to him, "I would like, instead of these gifts, I would like that if I come and request something of you, you would respond to my request." Of course, as in your position as a warden, if I ever send you a message of a request, I want you to accept. And that is why this man was suddenly freed from prison, because the warden was faithful to his promise, realizing how all of his blessings came through because of this tzaddik. So the blessing that tzaddik, you imagine, for this guy in the prison was like a light in the middle of the darkness. A light out of nowhere. Hashem had sent him and rescued him completely out of nowhere. And this this kindness of Hashem, the light in the middle of the darkness, is something we all experience different ways. And as the previous Rebbe said, every individual could think about their last day or their last week, and you could see how divine providence brought things together in ways that they never expected. But we need to properly have self-esteem. Self-esteem doesn't only mean that you value your finances, you value your acumen. Self-esteem means you value your truest and deepest self. So I want to share with you three more stories. Second story, this woman visited our Farbrengen a few weeks ago, and she shared a story about herself. Um, I don't believe I shared the story with you last week. Could be I did. She said that she grew up in San Diego. Her father was a Holocaust survivor, and her father was very against Judaism. He was very as a Holocaust survivor. He was a lover of Jews and the Jewish people and Jewish culture and even Jewish education, but he did not have any good feelings about Judaism. Meanwhile, his daughter had this great love for Judaism. Actually, sorry, His daughter had a great love for spirituality, and she was studying all kinds of spirituality. She had studied Christianity, she had studied many other religions, and that's what she was really majoring in college, comparative religion, and that's she was really into. And at this time, her father, this Holocaust survivor, has this dream, and in this dream, he sees his daughter crying, and he realized his life was saved twice because of a dream, and so he realized he should not ignore this dream. So he knew what to do with this dream. So he went to the synagogue there in San Diego, and the synagogue was managed by people who were a little Hasidically challenged. And they said, you know what, if you have a question about a dream, the guy you want to speak to is in Los Angeles. You want to speak to Rabbi Shlomo Kunin, Rebbe's emissary to Los Angeles. He's from the Hasidic persuasion, and they're more into dreams over there. He's probably the guy you want to talk to. All right? Sure. He calls up Rabbi Kunin, and Rabbi Kunin responded. It must have been a call he made to the Rebbe because it's not the kind of thing that a regular human being would think of. Rabbi Kunin says that your daughter should go to Chicago, and there she'll find what she is seeking. She should meet Rabbi Hecht in Chicago. Those familiar with the Hecht family, they were Rabbi J.J. Hecht and Rabbi Ram Hecht had an older brother, passed away very young, and who was a rabbi in Chicago. You should go travel to Chicago, and there you'll find what you're seeking. All right? Her father, again, he wasn't religious, but he had some connection to spirituality, obviously, and he's like, okay, we're going to Chicago. They go to Chicago. Interesting thing happens. Rabbi Hecht wasn't available at the time, whatever reason, he wasn't around. But as they're walking the streets of Chicago, they meet a Rabbi Berkowitz. And he tells Rabbi Berkowitz the whole story. He had this dream, and he got this message from the Rebbe. Rabbi Kunin must have called the Rebbe, and he told him he should travel to Chicago and meet Rabbi Hecht because his daughter is crying. She's looking for something. So Rabbi Berkowitz, who was not a chassid of the Rebbe at all, but he says, let her come to my house. And she stayed in his house for 2 weeks. And in this time, spending in his house for 2 weeks, she had found what she was looking for. She had found something that had answered the cry that she herself didn't know what she was crying for. Her neshama was crying. Her neshama wanted to come home to Hashem. And being there for 2 weeks, she suddenly felt, I've arrived. This is what I was looking for. This was what I was crying for. This is what I needed. And today, I met this. She told me the story herself. This is how she lives. She lives with Torah and with mitzvahs with such happiness and such passion, because the Rebbe sent her to Chicago, and for reasons that only Hashem knows. But I think the hero of the story, if you ask me, the hero of the story is not her father who paid attention to his dreams, and not his daughter whose soul was crying for Torah, because that's something that she was born with. I think the hero of the story was Rabbi Berkowitz, who realized the call of divine providence. He realized the value of his position. He realized the value of his interaction with this random stranger. And he said to himself, these people have come here and I can help them and I'm going to help them. That realization, I think, comes from a real sense of self-esteem. Self-esteem means to value your neshama, to value your soul, to value Hashem, who has put your soul in this world. So on that note, I want to share two more stories about this idea of self-esteem. Rabbi Hillel Paritcher wanted to meet the Alter Rebbe very deeply. He had a real deep desire to see the Alter Rebbe. But every time he traveled to see the Alter Rebbe left the town before he arrived. He would travel to see the Alter Rebbe, and he heard the Alter Rebbe was coming to a certain town. The Alter Rebbe would travel a lot, and whenever he came to a certain place, the Alter Rebbe had already left. So he was a very intelligent man, and so he's like, I know what to do. I'll go to the town where the Alter Rebbe is going to travel to, and I'll wait in the home where he's going to stay, and I'll meet him because I'll just be in that home already. So that's what he did. He went to this town. He was in the bedroom, hiding there, waiting for the Alter Rebbe to enter. And he was hiding under a bed. and he had prepared a question in Erchin. Erchin is a Talmudic book about the laws of vows. Torah says that um, when you give the value of a human being to the Beis Hamikdash, there is a certain formula of how a human being is evaluated, and it goes by the age of the person. Person is 10 years old, 20 years old, 50 years old, or man or woman. Is a standard amount of what you pay when you make that kind of vow to Hashem. So it's a very deep Talmudic book. And Reb Hillel had prepared a question to begin the conversation with the Alter Rebbe. He wanted to ask him the Alter Rebbe a question and thus enter into learning with him and go back and forth, and perhaps through this to discuss more of his spiritual questions that he had for the Alter Rebbe. But when the Alter Rebbe came to the home where he was staying, and the Alter Rebbe entered the bedroom, the Alter Rebbe would always speak in a song. And the Alter Rebbe said, when a young man has a question in Erchin, when a young man has a question in this tractate, it is better that he estimate himself. That's what the Alter Rebbe said. And then the Alter Rebbe left. The Hillel Parasher was so overwhelmed by the divine providence, by the divine inspiration that the Alter Rebbe expressed at that moment, that he simply fainted there under the bed. And the Hillel Parasher actually never met the Alter Rebbe. But perhaps what the Alter Rebbe was responding to was a deeper question. Reb Hillel was saying, I have a question in Erchin. What's a question you have in Erchin? What's a natural question? The question you naturally have is, how can we all be the same amount? Everyone has different achievements. There's different yardstick of measuring achievement. You can measure by financial success. You can measure by acumen. You can measure by scholastic academic achievement. You can measure by communal achievement. There are all different kinds of yardsticks. So how could everyone have the same value? So instead of the Alter Rebbe addressing the question, the Alter Rebbe went to the source of the question. The reason a person has this question, a person is estimating himself and either feeling better than others or less than others, is because they don't really have true self-esteem. True self-esteem is that you value your neshama, you value the majesty of your mission from Hashem, and therefore you're not upset if you're less than others. You're not arrogant if you're better than others, because you value the mission that Hashem has put you on. So the Alter Rebbe told Reb Hillel, if a young man has a question in Erchin, if a young man has a question about what yardstick should you use to measure? The Alter Rebbe says, better measure yourself. Better realize who you really are. Better realize how you've been chosen by Hashem, and you have a mission from Hashem. Forget about the yardstick of better and worse, and open yourself up to something deeper. On that note, one more story. Rabbi Hillel had a student who was called Reb Shalom Reb Hillels. He was called Reb Shalom, who belonged to Reb Hillel. Reb Shalom Reb Hillels. They called him Reb Shalom Reb Hillels because Reb Hillel was for the Alter Rebbe, he was sort of like the man in charge of the West Point of Hasidim. He was the man in charge of people who were coming to join the Hasidic ranks, and he would educate them and teach them the ways of Hasidim. People were coming from Shklov and from Vilna and from Minsk. They wanted to learn about the ways of Hasidus. A lot of times the Alter would send them to learn from Reb Hillel. Reb Hillel was a very, very unique scholar, very unique, very uniquely gifted, and he raised Hasidim through his tutelage. People were coming from environments where Hashem wasn't viewed in the proper way. Well, among other things, the previous Rebbe writes, Hillel would teach his new cadets that God is loving and kind and merciful, which was not something that they knew. Anyways, so Reb Shalom, we have to understand this is the generation of the first Hasidim with the Alter Rebbe, different level than we can imagine. Reb Shalom was davening Ma'ariv. In our synagogue, davening Ma'ariv takes, for the fastest chazanim, about 7 minutes, for the slowest chazanim, about 15 minutes. But this gentleman was davening Ma'ariv for an entire night. He was staying at a hotel, at a little inn, a kretschme, and he davened Ma'ariv the entire night. Comes daybreak, and he finishes Ma'ariv, and he sees the sun has risen. What's he going to do? Go to sleep after such an incredible experience? Now it's time to daven Shachris. Now it's time to daven the morning prayers. So he prepares himself to daven the morning prayers. And he davens the morning prayers all day long. All day long. And the innkeeper is in the middle of davening the afternoon prayers. Reb Shalom is davening the morning prayers until the afternoon. He's up to Shema. He's up to Shema for the morning when the innkeeper is up to Mincha. So the innkeeper remarks, poor guy, a cup, a head that is verstopft, a head that is plugged, a head that is clogged up, a head that can't understand anything. The innkeeper understood that the reason why Rabbi Shalom was taking such a long time to daven, because he could not read. He doesn't know how to read. He's davening all night, Mariv. He's davening all day, Shachris. Poor guy, a verstopft, a cup, a clogged up brain. He just does not get how to read. Poor guy. What was the reaction of Rabbi Shalom? A regular guy, or a guy in the caliber of Reb Shalom, hearing the criticism of this innkeeper, would either laugh, like this guy is making fun of him. This guy has no idea what kind of a spiritual experience his davening is. And he understands davening only in his yardstick for measuring davening is only how fast it takes you to say the words. He has no idea what Rishon was going through. He has no idea what he's experiencing. No way he's never tasted. He can't imagine. Um, uh, what it means to daven Ma'ariv an entire night. This guy has no idea. So Reb Shalom would either laugh, it would seem, or he would ignore, or maybe get upset, he would get insulted. But Reb Shalom took this to heart. Reb Shalom took this deeply to heart. Reb Shalom said to himself, this guy is telling me I have a verstopfte cup. The guy is telling me I have a clogged up head. Reb Shalom was thinking about divine providence. The Baal Shem Tov said everything you see or you hear is a message from Hashem. So Reb Shalom took this as a message from Hashem. Hashem is talking to me and telling me that I need to wake up. So Reb Hillel Parasha said about a student, my student studied with me for 3 years. And all that I said to him didn't have as much of an impact as that remark of the innkeeper. Reb Shalom was, because perhaps of his davening all night, he was sensitive enough to hear the voice of Hashem in the insult of the innkeeper. A regular person wouldn't hear the voice of Hashem. But Absalom was a different kind of guy. Absalom heard the voice of Hashem, and he went somewhere with it. It brought him to a higher level. Yes, he was in a high level, but there's a level he wasn't reaching yet. There's a level he was holding himself back from. He wasn't going as deep as he could go. And hearing this innkeeper make this remark to him, not even to him, not even knowing what he's saying, I need to do something. I was thinking about the story today, especially because I learned something today, which I think I should share with everyone, um, about a Farbrengen the Rebbe gave in 1983. The Rebbe was speaking in 1983 about how the Baal Shem Tov, Farbrengen in this Shabbos, Parshas Tetzaveh, Baal Shem Tov said, the reason we do not bless this month is because God himself blesses this month. And Baal Shem Tov said that God's blessing on this parsha is that we should be standing strong in judgment. We'll for sure be successful. Hashem blesses each of us and all of us that we'll be standing in the judgment of Rosh Hashanah, we'll be standing before Hashem erectly, proudly, vindicated, receive all of God's blessings. So Baal Shem Tov continued and said, and with the power of God's blessing, we can bless, the Jewish people can bless all the next 11 months of the year. So the Rebbe said that because the Baal Shem Tov is talking about the impact of the next 11 months of the year, that shows that this time, this Shabbos, is not only a time to focus on the blessing of Hashem, but also what we're supposed to do the next 11 months of the year. We're supposed to think about how to bring this down. So specifically, the Rebbe said that we should make a decision to give tzedakah, and the thing about how much tzedakah we want to give based upon how much income we want to have. Think about how much tzedakah you want to give based upon how much income that you are trying to earn. And that's the amount you should give. And just like the previous Rebbe was once visited by this man who could not possibly help the previous Rebbe for what his mission, what he wanted to do at the time. The previous Rebbe wanted to publish a certain book called the Stei Chemed, and he needed a certain amount of money. And this man offered to pay it. But the previous Rebbe knew he couldn't afford it, but he blessed him. And that blessing was fulfilled because previous Rebbe said it wasn't just a blessing, it was the man made a decision to give, and that opened up a new channel of blessing. So the Rebbe said that people should make a decision on Shabbos. And after Shabbos, now should write it down. And by writing it down, you're bringing it down to the physical world. So so I always thought this was something the Rebbe said just one for bring, and it wasn't necessarily a lesson for all other years. If I stopped the cup, I didn't get it. But the truth is, Rebbe says very clearly, there's a reason why this Shabbos has this impact. Since the Shabbos is the Shabbos that blesses all the months of the year, therefore our decisions this Shabbos have to be about the impact we need to have throughout the year. And therefore we should make decisions about the tzedakah we're going to give materially, and the tzedakah we're going to give spiritually, and helping and teaching others the teachings of Chassidus, and that decision brings down the blessing of Hashem, that not only we should be able to fulfill the decision, but we should also be blessed with so much more financially, because that tzedakah is meant to be percentage, 10%, 20%, 25% of your earnings. So therefore, the decision we make this Shabbos, we should write down, and we should. Evan said to write it down. Perhaps a good idea would be to send it in to the Ohel, ask her for a blessing, and that's how you make it happen. But the main thing is not the financial success, but the spiritual success, to have the proper estimation of who we are. We are Jews, like our grandfather Adam. And God created Adam because of God's plan to make the world a home for him to bring Mashiach. And that's what happens every Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is the time we coronate Hashem as our king, and we accept upon ourselves more deeply and higher our mission, we coronate Hashem as our king personally to fulfill the mission of Hashem to bring Mashiach. So in this acceptance, we're also asking Hashem for all the resources we need to make this happen. So the main resource we need is the coming Mashiach Tzedekenu Karev Mamish, and we should see it happen in Karev Mamish. L'chaim l'chaim, a good tevach, a freil tevach, good tevach, as the Miriam good tevach, David good tevach, and Fall David. Chaim.